Not only have you never been on a cruise, babe, but you're going on a naked cruise with a bunch of naked people. All right. And that's how the story went. And we paid and we committed, and I have no regrets whatsoever. Okay, you gorgeous icons. If you read the title of this episode, then you know you're in for a treat today. For those of you that absolutely love the guilty pleasure of my After Dark episodes, which I know there's a lot of you lurking that haven't reached out because you're secret perverts and curious humans. But if you're new here, I'm going to just preface this by saying this is not safe for work. It is not safe for little ears. And I really encourage you to try this on in terms of this perspective and just hearing my lessons and journey in what I'm going to share with you today. Try it on like a jacket and just be like, huh. And just notice what comes up for you, right? When I say certain things, you might be triggered, or you might think, huh, I didn't think of it that way. And really, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. That's why the podcast exists. That's why I share these things. And sometimes they're a little all over the place because I'll have, not to sound, like a cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs person, but I will have something come to me as I'm sharing a point that I have here in my notes. And it just was meant to land in the podcast, and it might be a message for you in some way, shape, or form. So that's my little intro here to just simply say, buckle down. You might want to put some headphones in for this conversation. I really want this to feel like if you and I were having coffee, as I poured some coffee here. I kind of created my space to podcast today really cozy in a chair because I wanted it to feel like a conversation that I had when I shared this information with lots of people over the last couple weeks since I've been home, right? I processed this with my sister. I processed this with Crystal, and quite frankly, intermittently and sporadically with my daughter. That's not something, we talk about sex and all those things, but I processed a lot of my findings just kind of as a human, as a woman walking through the world. And this is now going to be really sharing a lot of those things, but with the intention of, I used to come from a very jealous background in terms of how I showed up in relationships, very insecure. And my ex-husband will be the first one to tell you. In fact, if you know either of us very well, or you were with us throughout any of our journey, when we were married, I was very jealous and insecure. And, I think some of this comes with the things that I've experienced and relationships, and just really not knowing myself very well and not having an education and understanding around psychology. And really, I think it boils down to being incredibly comfortable with who I am as a person. And that's been an evolution of sorts. And a lot of you have been here to witness that, which I thank you for holding space for that. But it's interesting how my perspectives have changed, and a lot of the things that I've believed to be true about relationships and monogamy, and really how any relationship is supposed to look. I use air quotes there. And I've done a lot of things that are unconventional, and I have a very curious mind, and I want to know why societally, like, certain things are always considered normal and other things aren't, when sometimes other things just feel really true to who I am as a person. And one of those things is how I perceive sexuality and monogamy and relationships with, somebody, a partner in your life. So anyways, I'm not going to get too crazy and granular down that fun little ADHD rabbit hole, but I do want to share with you my perspective on the Bliss Cruise. Now, if you've been hanging out with me on social media, you saw I did a post there. I tagged them in it. Actually, I was a little disappointed that they didn't repost that, because I saw them repost a bunch of other creators' stuff, and I was like, I kind of felt like my post was pretty fucking good in terms of the intention behind it and really kind of sharing the message of what I learned. But nonetheless, regardless, I know that Jack and I are going to do an episode together. He'll be out here in another week, and we're going to share our experience together as a couple. But I wanted to have the girlfriend chat version, like the, hey, come here, let's sit down. Let me tell you, right? I have classically been the person that in situations likes to ask the questions that other people are uncomfortable asking, right? I was always the girl in school who refused to raise my hand. And now I raise my hand at every opportunity to learn more about everything I can because I see how much it's taught me. And so I really want you to feel like the questions that you're embarrassed to ask, or maybe everyone's thinking, but they're just not saying out loud, you're going to find a lot of the answers in my sort of experiences, at least how I move through things. So with that being said, the Bliss Cruise, I'm not going to get into a lot of the kind of ins and outs of the cruise and like all the things. Jack and I are going to do a total deep dive. We already have a good outline for that. So I'm going to give you more or less a behind the scenes of being a woman kind of floating through this, right? My own perspective for the curious girlies. And I will start by saying, I know I'm really heavily speaking a lot about like burnout and really filling your own cup up and not being a back burner bitch, because I'm climbing out of that myself, right? I just turned the corner there and I'm still doing the work and I feel like I've caught a good stride with it. But a lot of what you're seeing and hearing now is the result of this cruise, and not necessarily the cruise itself and the nature of the cruise, but this is the first time that I can remember in probably 12 years. I'm trying to think of the last vacation where I totally unplugged, that I have gone somewhere and fully said, okay, I'm not working. I am here. I'm going to be present. I need to. But the funny thing is, the caveat there is that I actually was working because I was journaling and I was taking notes, and I really wanted to create a podcast where I was able to dive back into the moments on the cruise that were important and really share my life's work with you. So it's kind of work, but it's not. And that's how I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because it doesn't feel like work, right? But needless to say, I feel like I finally exhaled, and like just Jack and I were able to fully be present with each other, right? There wasn't much he could do on the ship for his businesses. I decided that I was only going to work one day, and that was on Monday. And I have one-on-one clients that I coach through the Iconic Coaching Academy. And so those are more intentional check-ins and they get videos. And so I needed space to like work and have my time, which I have a great story for you in a little bit about what happened while I was doing that. But during that was like a 4-hour span. And the rest of the time I was pretty much checked out. And I say pretty much because like I had the occasional text come through or this or that, but nothing died or stopped spinning while I was gone. And so this is also a hint to those of you that are like high performing entrepreneurs. You know, I work with a lot of coaches in the coaching space. Like I'm definitely stepping up as like the coach's coach, so that way we can all be better for the greater good. And so if that resonates with you, vacation, relax, taking a pause, a breather is actually important to your work, right? It's where you can come up for air and not be working in the business and be in your life, and you start to see things and notice things, and it actually gives you a lot more juice when you come back, right? And that's how I feel right now. So anyhow, I definitely realized when I got there that rest felt way harder than I thought, okay? Because the first day, you know, it takes a minute for me to acclimate on trips and things, but even when we went to Portugal, I took my two youngest and my parents went, and we went to Portugal, or to Azores, I should say, for 9 days. I worked, I want to say over half of that trip I worked. And that was because I had at the time, I think 50 one-on-one online coaching clients. And that, just for reference, is a fucking lot, at least if you want to coach with integrity. So nonetheless, I've definitely intentionally scaled back my one-on-one coaching, but I knew I could get away with that. And I was ready. So fast forward, you know, we're here, and I know a lot of the questions that come through because I've got them from you guys, and I posted a Q&A box, and I did get some questions. I'm going to keep everybody anonymous, but I want to go over some of those. That'll probably be a little bit later in the podcast. And this is more than likely going to be a 2-part series. I'm just going to forewarn you, but I want to share with you some things that I learned, and this is probably going to be scattered, but you know, y'all love how I roll. All right. The first thing is body positivity. Okay. And I know there'll be some crossover, and Jack and I will also discuss a lot of these things as well, but you'll get to hear our perspectives as like a couple moving through this experience. So a lot of things I hear from people is, oh my gosh, I could never do that. I don't have a perfect body. And so let me just tell you, you can go ahead and let's just wipe that clean from any concern you have. Now, this podcast is not a pitch for the Bliss Cruise. This is really a conversation in a lot of the experiences I've been having in the past 3 years with experimenting with different types of lifestyle type things, right? I've gone to lifestyle takeover parties. I've gone to sex clubs. I've gone to, obviously, now this Bliss Cruise, different little experiences within the open lifestyle kind of curious, non-monogamish ish type of realm. And if you're like, ooh, that's where this is going, and you're curious even more, definitely check back the archives. I will see if my podcast editor, Stephanie, she's a little angel, I'll see if she can somehow magically put some of those episodes in the show notes, and you can just click right to them and you can hear more about my journey. But I knew that going into the cruise, this was going to be like those experiences really on steroids, pun intended, right? Because it was 7 days of being with this sort of group of people that really spans a lot of different things. And we'll go into that here in a little bit. But something that you are guaranteed to see when you enter environments like this, and listen, I can't vouch for every environment, and I think you need to have more than one experience to really judge it because, for example, Jack and I went to a lifestyle event in Livermore, and I think it was our first one together. It was kind of like a little meet and greet at a vineyard or whatever. Not our vibe, right? Like those people weren't our people. It could have been very easy for us to say, oh no, I don't like this based off that one experience. But experience is really accumulation of multiple touch points of something. And so I really think letting yourself have multiple experiences and giving it a try, if this is something you're curious about, is super important. But nonetheless, all shapes, all sizes, there was a lot of diversity in terms of like culturally, right? Super inclusive of all walks of life. Now, just to give you an example, okay, I saw a woman with both breasts removed, full mastectomy scars. Okay, we saw a handicapped couple in wheelchairs, right, in motorized wheelchairs together that were partaking in everything, and just so much, tall, short. I mean, everything you can possibly imagine. And it was very refreshing to just be able to be in that environment and see that you don't have to be a supermodel because I'm certainly not, right? You don't have to be XYZ to attend these things. And we're going to talk about some questions that I know are kind of swirling and have been asked about just like people judging you and stuff. We're going to go over that in a little bit later. But I really knew, if you're wondering, okay, why did you choose this style of vacation? So let me back up just a little bit. So this was a clothing optional cruise. Okay. And so what that entails is you're going to see swingers. So these are people that they have an open relationship of some dynamic. And I could go on to all the variables here, but I'm just going to spare you on that. And maybe I can do a deeper dive if you're interested, because there are a lot of different variables, from a full swap to a soft swap to a parallel play kind of situation. And there are nudists, right, that can attend. There are people that are voyeurs, right, exhibitionists, that kind of thing. And it really is a safe place for everybody to really just let their freak flag fly, whatever flavor that is, without yucking anyone's yum. And that's something that I really had to unwind in my brain all these years, was like things that you've been told or society has made us to believe are perverted or, bizarre or gross or whatever. And really, it is just people in their most vulnerable, natural state enjoying their partner or each other with consent and ultimate respect for the people they're sharing energy with, right? Now, there is always going to be a story for a story. Let me explain. There's always going to be a story for somebody who went to these things and felt pressured, or somebody who went and felt like everybody was judging them, or went and there's going to be a story for everything. But I will tell you, in the 3 years that I have been kind of weaving myself in and out of these different experiences with these, I don't want to say types of people because that sounds awful, but this group of people who believe that this is totally okay, it has absolutely changed my mind about so many things. And I think that's really where I want to shine the light on having you think about trying on some of these perspectives and opening your mind to having a lot of fucking fun. Okay. So I basically told Jack, I'm like, hey, we need a vacation, right? Like last year about killed me, last year about killed him, right? He had 3 businesses going at one time. They had to close one business, and that was very stressful. It was very stressful in our relationship. It was stressful for him. And clearly, like, I moved, there's a lot going on just behind the scenes. And I was like, look, we need like an unplugged vacation. Now, here's the problem. Because I have gone to so many of these style of events and parties, and he has too, right? Like, I have drugged this man in. And for the record, this was something I was doing when we first started dating. I was already moving throughout this space as a single person. And when him and I met, I made it abundantly clear that these were the things I was interested in. And this has been something we've had to work through. Like, we work on, and actually it's work. Every time we put ourselves in this kind of environment, we have to have these conversations, which we'll discuss here in a little bit, the importance of the conversations and things that need to be had. But I told him, I said, I don't particularly want to feel censored in any way, shape, or form. And when him and I are together and we're in these environments, our intimacy, it's like it levels up every fucking time. Every fucking time. And I'm not just talking like the sex we're having. I'm talking our ability to have conversations with each other that maybe would have been a little bit uncomfortable or awkward, or asking for things that we want from each other sexually that maybe he probably would have not been comfortable, verbalizing. But now I've been able to pull things out of him. He's been able to pull things out of me. It's been remarkable. But we also went into this as a team, and I decided, like, we're going to work through this together. And as things come up, opportunities, people we meet, like, these are things we're going to have to cross as we get there. I have no expectations for anything except for us to be completely open and honest with each other. If there's anything that either one of us wants to experience or has a desire or is curious about, that there will be no judgment around that, and that we're willing to listen to each other and see what we can, what we can figure out that'll work for our relationship. And so I think if you are starting in a place similarly like that with your partner, and you guys can have all, like, if you ask Jack that his favorite phrase, or his least favorite, let me correct that, his least favorite phrase of mine is, okay, we need to talk. Nobody wants to hear that. Okay. And this, I don't want to say this poor man, but it's been a lot of that, right? To have this kind of relationship, you have to be okay with communicating a fuck ton, not just like a little smattering. Oh, we're going to have a little chat about it. Oh yeah, we kind of talked about it. No, like, you have to be so clear and open and honest, and make sure that you know exactly what both of your intentions are as a couple going into these experiences. I highly suggest that, right? And that really is just doing the fucking uncomfortable work. If you think for a second that your man is going to be any kind of jealous, if a man looks at you wrong and your man gets jealous, or he sees a man checking you out, or you check another man out, and then this causes issues, this is not for you. My personal experience would be that you work on that and figure out what that's about before you try to think that this is going to make it better. And those were some of the conversations that we had, right? It was like, I want to let you know, you have my full permission to look at any female at any time. And this is not something you're going to get in trouble for, right? Because I'm going to look, okay? No one's going to tell me where to put my eyes, right? I'm a curious person. I'm going to look. I'm going to see something. I'm gonna mention that, right? Like that couple's hot, that's sexy. I love that, right? And that having that sort of like permission, I guess, between the two of you is so refreshing because you can go into an environment like this and you can be like, okay, like I can check out chicks, I can check out dudes, I can whatever your thing is, and not feel like you're breaking the rules of your commitment to your partner. Right? There are beautiful people everywhere. There are beautiful things everywhere. There are sexy and hot things. And when you get into a relationship, if you think that all of a sudden, because you're in a relationship and you're so in love and you're married, that's going to just like all of a sudden stop, you're setting yourself up for disappointment in the future. And that's something that I had to learn. And so I think what makes our relationship hotter and stronger is that we have this level of intimacy paired with all of the things that we love each other outside of our intimate relationship. And all of that together is like the secret sauce that helps us build that deeper intimacy and know that like he's always got my highest good, I always have his highest good. And also we want to respect each other's desires for things. And so that's really how I lead with this conversation. Wow, that was super tangenty. I need a sip of coffee, so here we go. Okay, I told you it was going to tangent. Okay, so we are on the Bliss Cruise. We're hanging out with swingers, lifestyle people, naked people doing sexy things. We decided with this cruise because I follow a YouTube account and I'm a researcher. Okay. So I like to gather information and then make a decision about things. It's how a lot of times how I create content and things like that. So it was really important for me as I was looking at where we were going to invest our money for an all-inclusive that I wanted to know the pros, the cons from multiple different people on the internets, right? So I found Jace and Bella on YouTube. And I think their website or their YouTube is foreplay.com, like the number 4. And what's funny, side note, I wasn't planning on mentioning this, is we saw them on the cruise and we were literally right next to them on the dance floor multiple times. And I could not bring myself to fucking say hi. How funny is that? Like I had my own content creator, like starstruck moment because I've watched so many hours of their content. I feel like I know them. So I saw their stuff and I was looking at the Bliss Cruise. I was looking at Desire Resorts. And I really thought, you know, Jack has never been on a cruise. I haven't been on a cruise in over 20 years. And this just sounded like a lot of fun. It sounded like it was going to be a party and it was going to get me outside of my comfort zone. There was a lot to offer. And, you know, it was going to stop in a couple really cool places, the Dominican, Puerto Vallarta, whatever. And we would get to explore a little bit there. And he was like all for it. So I have to tell you this story because he's going to tell it. I can't wait for him to tell the story too. But one of the ways that I communicate with the people in my life and that I love and the people on my team is through this app called Marco Polo. And I'm like obsessed with it because it has literally brought me so closer to the people in my relationships. And it's so much fun. And it's helped me be a better communicator. And it's helped the people that I communicate with articulate better, right? Because you have to explain things one-sided in your feelings and emotions and opinions about things. And so one thing I did is I got him on it when I moved here so we could communicate throughout the day. We'd find a moment of time and it's really cool. So if you have somebody you're in a long distance relationship with or your kids, I highly encourage it. Because if you ever have a moment and you're thinking about them and you have a free moment and you're like, oh, I should call them, but oh no, they're busy. I just pop on Marco Polo and I'm like, hi, what are you doing? What's going on in your life today? Here's what I'm doing, blah, 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 blah. And then you have these great conversations. Nonetheless, there's a squirrely moment for you. I sent him a Marco Polo one morning at 7 a.m. Mind you, he's still asleep, but I had already been up since, I don't know, probably 5:30 or something. And I was trying to finalize our vacation plans because I don't give a fuck where we go. Okay. I trust you. And I'm like, okay, great. So he let me take the wheel. And so I was, I'm more finicky about certain things than he is. And so he wanted to make sure I was happy. So I picked it out and I got on Marco Polo and I said, all right, here's the thing. This cruise has been sold out for 8 months. I just so happened to pop on their website and it looks like they may have released some cabins that were probably held by a deposit and those people like bailed for some reason. We literally have 15 minutes to make this decision. Okay. No rush, but let me know what you think. I had sent him the link to the cruise the night before. Now, I didn't tell him it was a lifestyle cruise, okay? AKA nude cruise, swinger cruise, whatever you want to call it. I didn't tell him because I thought he was going to open it up and read it and see. Well, he opened it up, but I don't think he read as closely. Like he depends on me to do the research, so he didn't think to look that far into the information. Well, he gives me his credit card, I book the trip, and then he proceeds to find out after a few days that this is what we're doing. Not only have you never been on a cruise, babe, but you're going on a naked cruise with a bunch of naked people. All right. And that's how the story went. And we paid and we committed, and I have no regrets whatsoever. In fact, we're planning on another vacation, hopefully in the fall here. And it's either going to be another cruise of the same kind, or it is going to be a resort that is also themed in the same way, right? A lifestyle / clothing optional resort. So stay tuned for that. Okay. Now, I want to talk about, now that I give you a little bit of like my ramble about my mindset around this whole process. I know if you're new here, it could be a lot. And, if you're going to stay around, then you're a lot too. And that's great. You're an audacious woman just like myself, and I love you. Maybe you're just secretly audacious. Now, let's talk about some fun stuff. Let's talk about the girl stuff, okay? The girly fun stuff. What do women wear during the day and the nighttime? Okay, so this is a fun question. You will see so many different things. Now, on the ship, there are designated areas where you could be nude, okay? So you can't be nude like in the restaurants. You can't be nude like walking down the halls to your room, in the elevators, like common places, right? Let's just be a little bit like, sanitary or whatever. But you will see like very skimpy clothes. And one of my favorite things about this whole experience in this entire way of living is that the women love to either be just naked or dressed up or fixated on whatever the theme is, because in the lifestyle, in this type of environment, oftentimes there are themed nights and like you're supposed to wear whatever, and they're fucking hilarious. They're great. And sometimes people will come up with the most crazy elaborate dress up costumes and things to like people who are just like, I'm not really a theme person, and they just come looking sexy and whatever the fuck they want. There really is no wrong way to do it, which is the awesome part. So where you're going to see the nudity is going to be in places like the hot tub, the pool, where else? The playrooms. They have designated spaces on the ship for playrooms. And basically a playroom is where you go in, and one of the rules there is that if you go into a playroom, except for one night where they have a playroom and dancing going on at the same time, if they have that going on, you don't have to be basically nude. But if it's just a playroom night where it's just beds and people are, they're playing, they're having sex, they're whatever, they're doing their thing, you have to be in a robe, or men have to be in a towel, like around their waist, whatever, in boxers, but you have to be in there with the intention of being on the same playing field as everyone else, right? Like you can't just go in there and have clothes on and be watching people without reciprocating that energy, is how I could best explain it, right? So that is something to keep in mind, because there was one evening where we walked up to one of the playrooms, and we had been there the night before, and the night before was actually the dance and play night. And so they were just kind of like shuffling everybody in and giving you towels in case you were going to play and find a place to lay down and, do your thing. And they let us in, no big deal. And then the second time when we went in there, we were thinking the same thing. And they were like, are you going in? I go, yeah. He goes, you got to be naked. And I looked at Jack, and like, we were in this kind of like brightly lit room, and people were just dropping trow everywhere. And I had this elaborate getup on, and it was just like, I would have had to like, oh my God, it was a situation. And I was like, okay, we'll come back, or we'll go find a different playroom. Right. So other than that, just what you're wearing on the day to day is basically like I would walk around in just like really skimpy bikini, really shorty shorts that are like my ass is hanging out of, things that like got my tits spilling over. You can be topless if you want while you're out there. Listen, I'm just going to say this now. I did not go fully nude. Okay. Jack didn't either. And let me tell you why. Okay. So I I have never done the fully topless or fully nude at any of the lifestyle events that I've gone to. I've gone as far as like wearing pasties, which I think is really fun. I love wearing pasties and just, running around with something either like mesh or sheer over me or whatever, because I like to dress, I like to dress up. Okay. That's the fun part for me. I love finding the matching pasties that matches the color of the theme and this and that. Now, as far as being topless or completely naked and not wearing bottoms, that's not for me. Now, it's not for me, not because of I'm embarrassed or I just don't want anybody seeing my vulva. It has nothing to do with that. Okay. Girl talk, my lady parts are very unique. Okay. So when I'm not wearing underwear, it's uncomfortable for me to walk. Okay. It's a labia situation. And those of you that have labia that aren't what is considered normal labia, high five. I feel you. I don't like, it's not comfortable for me to sleep naked, not wear underwear, that kind of thing, because your girl is unique. Okay. We're unique. So next vacation, next trip that we do go on, I'm most certainly considering wearing nothing up top and being topless, because the last couple days that we were there and I was sort of finally falling into a relaxation mode and by the pool and stuff, because there was 2 days where we were at, destinations where we got off the boat. And so the last couple days was more relaxing, like by the pool and enjoying myself. I felt like we were the minority because there were more people topless and naked than there weren't. Okay. And so here I am with my full ass bikini on. And I was just like, not necessarily wanting to take my top off to do what everybody else is doing. But I was just like, wow, these girls just like really are like, they look like they just feel so free with their titties out. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? My titties are going to be out next time. And like, how amazing is that to not have tan lines too, right? Like, I think some level of tan lines is kind of hot, but some level of I got maybe like a tan line on the bottom and not on the top is also really fucking hot too. So I totally am gonna be brave and go topless on our next adventure. So, okay. We are going to go into a little bit of some juicy stuff. Okay. We're going to talk about judgment. All right. Feeling compared and judgment, right? Because that was one of the questions. Am I going to feel like people are judging me? Well, I don't know. Do you judge people? That's the question. That's the real question. Do you judge people? Okay, fuck yeah, I judge people. Okay, then you're probably going to be judged. There's no way to control that, right? There's no way to control that. People are going to judge you whether you have clothes on or whether you have clothes off. I'm going to tell you, in my experience, I have found that when you can hang out with a bunch of people that are fine being naked around each other like that and having fun and just doing their thing, they're less likely to judge you all the way around, okay? And that's really why I feel at home in that environment. It's because I feel like if I have a conversation with these people and I'm like, oh, I used to teach pole dance, I'm not going to be looked at, oh my God, you're such a hoe and a slut and this and that, right? Or were you a stripper, right? No, it's less. The noise of judgment feels so much quieter in that environment than it does if I show up at a pool party in a bikini of the same fashion with people who aren't naked and kind of like that whole like the male gaze and like the judgment and that sort of feeling that sometimes you get when we're a little bit nervous to be in very scantily clothed items, right? Or we're scantily clothed. So one thing I had to remind myself, or I remind myself in these situations and just in life in general, is that people are always judging and I cannot change that, right? And I think it's really a matter of the mindset that we take going into these experiences. And honestly, like I mentioned earlier, the people that had more clothing on were kind of the outsiders, and I feel like they were just drawing more attention to themselves, right? It's so weird. It's so weird how that was. I noticed just looking around too, after you're at the pool for a little bit and you're just chilling and everybody like acclimates to the naked people that are around them and like what they're seeing, is that sitting there with my wide brimmed hat on, my sunglasses that, you can't see my eyes. And I'm just kind of looking around. I'm just taking it all in. And I'm like, nobody gives a fuck. Like everybody is doing their own thing. And you'll catch eyes with somebody. You'll notice somebody's body. And then if they look and you're like, oh shit, I just got caught, staring. And it's okay. Like you have the permission to do that, right? It's fun. It's just, it doesn't feel any type of weird at all for me. Okay. Now, if you're enjoying this episode, I'm going to tell you to stay on the edge of your seat and let's stop here, and we're going to go into part 2, which will be next week, and you'll get to hear answers to the questions of, did I feel pressured to participate, or is there pressure to participate? Can I watch, or can I be there without participating? So I'll go a little bit more into the playroom vibes. The question of, is it weird to go and not be into a full like swinger lifestyle? And more questions like, how is consent communicated? Where do you go where nobody is having sex? Workshops and events that might help you ease into the vibe, what it continues to teach me about my body, moments that felt overwhelming, moments that felt liberating. I'm going to go through all that in part 2. And if you liked part 1, you're going to enjoy part 2 because I'm going to keep on going and it's going to be super juicy. And I hope that if you are not subscribed, you go and you hit that little plus sign and make sure that you're subscribed to the show, whether that's on Apple, whether that's on Spotify, and that will just at least let you know anytime I drop a new episode. So if you got this episode from a friend, which you probably did, because I know a lot of you guys like to share these juicy ones with your besties. If you're one of the besties, welcome to my world. Subscribe to the show. You're going to get part 2 next week. And I hope you stick around and enjoy the ride.